A second one that you write about, which I thought was very interesting as well, is like on the global playing field of, where kind of countries are aligning themselves and in China and Russia vying for influence, that some of these cultural things, and I've done a lot of work in Africa, and you wrote about Uganda, for example, and just that, like, recently, I see it more with Europe than with the US, but is this pushing of Western values tied to financial aid? Or, you want to deal with the World Bank, well, then you got to recognize ESG was a big one, right? And kind of this, I see with Africa, often they question like, wow, you want us to jump right to renewable energy, but, we've got these oil reserves we'd like to monetize. And by the way, isn't it hypocritical that Norway, are telling us after you've made $1 trillion, how we're supposed to not make any money off our oil, but you were allowed to, and we've got to do wind farm. And so your point is that, and I thought you said nice thing, that we kind of made this assumption, and we've increasingly been pushing Western values into the emerging markets, and there's a little bit of a resentment at that around that, and that actually China and Russia have been playing that up pretty well as just driving little wedges everywhere. Again, just kind of fracturing the post-world liberal order, as you said.
Yeah, this is a huge bit. It goes back to what I was saying about, you built this house, this edifice, the post-war liberal order, and you didn't tend it well, so it started to fall apart. And part of that is that you thought you had the nicest house on the street, and everybody wanted to live in your house. And actually, that's not true, because some people have very different tastes and very different values, and they don't like your house laid out the way it is. And yet there was this arrogance, and it really is arrogance. That's one of the reasons why I point out the decline in the perception of the U.S. as the pinnacle, the city on the hill, began really in the Clinton administration. And if you recall, Madeleine Albright, in justifying the war against Serbia, said, we have the right to do so because we are the indispensable nation. Really? Where's that written? Nobody else signed up for that, right? We're right because we are America. It was that arrogance. And if you see it, that pervaded everything. So as you say, now it's all those post-war institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, all these things, that they impose all, not just climate issues, but they impose all sorts of cultural issues too. And there's this, you always hear this term in the West, universal values. You go anywhere in the world, they don't know what those universal values are because they have different values. But the West is so arrogant that they think their values are everyone else's values. And while you were the biggest military and biggest economy in the world, people were willing to humor you in that. When you no longer are, and to exactly your point, when China is coming out and saying, hey, we'll give you a development loan, and we really don't care about your record on democracy or human rights or your views on sexual orientation or anything like that. We just want your commodities, and we want to trade, and we'll give you a loan for this. And then the West is coming along and saying, oh, well, we don't like actually your laws on homosexuality here. And that's no comment from my perspective.
Yeah, no.
We're going in, and in a lot of these cultures, that is an issue. We don't like the way you're using your resources. We don't like the way you're treating your labor. We don't like this. And you can only borrow this money if you do this and you adhere to our universal values that, of course, everybody accepts. And people are saying, we don't accept that. And so this has basically opened up the door for countries like China and Russia to come in and make inroads commercially and, most importantly, politically in many of these countries. And it really is a values and cultural warfare. And that's what I mean about the whole China's unrestricted warfare has been about opening up fronts that we don't usually think we compete on.